Hello there. Welcome to Broker Rehab, episode 2 with Jeff Sutherlin. I'm Courtney Twiss. We are so excited, as if you can't tell, about this new podcast, which is definitely geared towards our fellow realtors and team leads, those that are leaders in our industry. And today we're going to bring the heat. We're going to be discussing the fact that all of us have built a brokerage for freedom, but now the business is running you. It's like we all know we're wearing all those hats, and how do we juggle it? Jeff, take it from here.
Man, I've heard a lot of you guys out there are literally subsidizing your business right now. How does that feel? How does it feel to know that you have to keep on grinding every month just to keep the doors open and the lights on? That's frustrating. So that means you don't have the proper leverage. That means you're not recruiting enough people. That might mean your costs are too high. There could be so many different reasons why that's going on. So we want to unpack that today a little bit. Courtney and I were thinking about what's the best way to start this out. Like she said, we want to have freedom, but that's the last thing we have. We talk to so many independent brokers and they're miserable, but they're proud of their brand, and as you should be proud of your brand. But, you have to run a profitable business, right? So, let's talk a little bit about all these different reasons why we don't have freedom when we actually start our own place.
Right. Well, I think for me, I started my brokerage small and slowly, and then it just kind of started taking off a little bit organically for a long while. And you're like, okay, well, now what? Now I've got this whole monster, right? This whole machine that you've got to figure out how to manage. And you have all these people kind of relying on you, and everything has to funnel through you. Your weekly meeting content. You're the IT person when people's emails won't work or something's wrong with their CRM, right? That was probably my least favorite part of having to try to figure that out. I hate calling 1-800 numbers, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But you think all of a sudden you're like, okay, I know how to be a top salesperson. We were all that before we became brokers, but it's a whole nother can of worms when you're having to manage people and you're having to systematize. Like, how do you rinse and repeat? How do you duplicate something that's working and scale it to a larger level? And it can get pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think we should maybe start and just talk about some general principles around how do you do this, right? How do you do this successfully? A lot of it is no different than being an agent. As an agent, we need to time block, right? We need to time block to grow, to work on the business in the morning. And I always worked in the business in the afternoon, right? So working on the business, meaning that's growing the business, either attracting agents you want into your company or coaching the people up that are in your company. And what I typically did, quite honestly, is I focused on the top 20%, because typically the top 20% of your brokerage are the people that are going to produce the most. So it's easier to keep an agent that's great than to go find a new one, right?
Right.
So it's
Well,
really,
I will.
yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I was just thinking about that. I, have wanted to focus on my top 20%, but the time sucks always came from your bottom 20%. And I've very rarely let people go over the years, even though I knew you think, oh, they're independent contractors and you're just getting a little portion, but they're costing you money. Every single agent that you bring into your brokerage costs you money, and you have to know what that number looks like. What does each agent cost the company, and what does each agent bring in on average for the company? And I don't know that a lot of people don't look at their numbers like they need to.
Well, you hit that on the head, Courtney. So what I used to do every year, which was very different from most independent brokerages, and also when I was a team leader for a national franchise, I would call in the bottom performers every year. And I would call them in and say, hey, I care about you. I'd like to know what your goals are for next year. What would you like to achieve? Well, Jeff, I like to do 1 or 2 deals, this next year. I've got a lot going on. You know, I appreciate that. We may not be the right fit. And the reason I say that is because it's not just the financial cost that Courtney's talking about. It's also a cost to your brand. because what happens is over time, your brand gets lessened and, for the lack of a better word, dumbed down because you don't have people in the brokers that are producing. So when I started my company in Chandler, Arizona in 2009, which was like the worst possible year you could ever start a company, it was great for us. We only hired full-time agents.
Mhm.
And it got out there. It got out there in the community that that company only hires full-time agents. And what happened is the culture and the brand was so good and people were clamoring to get in while we were actually saying, no, it may not be a good fit. You have to be able to say no, right? And you also have to know when it's time to let people go. It's called top grading. It's a very good concept, very something that very few brokers will ever do.
Yeah, no, it definitely you're definitely right, Jeff. It most definitely can impact your brand when you've got someone that's not performing to the level of your standard, right? But I think part of that is how do you keep your brand strong as you scale? And how do you keep that consistency? And that's where it was so critical to get the processes in place, which is hard to do when that's not a natural inclination for you. So many salespeople, maybe it was just me, right? We do the disc. We used to do the disc on every single person in our office, so we would know how to communicate. But I'm high D, high I, and a lot of times that high I would win out the high D, where I just want to blow and go, and that could be effective in sales. Right? Like I will learn as I go along. I have no trouble talking to people and I did really well with selling real estate. But when you have to systematize that and you have to make sure that all your agents are doing it like you, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do.
Wow. This is such a great podcast. We're going to talk about so many different things. Okay, so I have literally recruited like 2,500 people into this industry over the last 25 years, and I've used the disc a lot. And just think if we all used the disc when we hired people right off the bat, like before they even get to an interview, they have to take a disc. Why? Because if you become a master of human behavior and you understand how people think, you're going to understand that in real estate, chances are, and there are some exceptions, but chances are the D's and the I's usually have a higher rate of success.
Mm.
That's just truth. I mean, now that's not to say an S or a C cannot. We've seen plenty of them succeed, but it's going to be a little tougher for those people because they're more administrative. They're more quality conscious. Sometimes analysis paralysis kicks in. So
Mhm.
you have, yeah, right. You have to know who you're getting. First of all, is who's your target, and back to the whole brand thing. You got to message this correctly. Like Courtney's amazing at messaging. She's like my idol when it comes to putting stuff out there into the world, but you have to be so spot on with your message to the world on social media and all of your marketing that people hear the same thing and they know that, oh my gosh, to work for that company, what a privilege to work for that company. And it's a high minded brand. This
Yeah.
is what I'm going to be a part of. You know what I mean?
For sure. And it's back to consistency, whether it's in your branding or your management. People, you have to say things 7 times before it's heard. And that's true with social media. Like these people think, oh, I put this out. And so say everybody's seen it. Well, that's not true. You actually need to repeat and maybe a little bit different, but repeat over and over and over. And that's how you keep your branding strong. It's the same when you're training up your people. They don't hear you the same way. Some see, some feel. Back to the disc. And you have to do it over and over and over in order to get to make it strong, right? Amongst your whole team.
Yeah, and a little bit more about the whole recruiting process. As you do a disc, let's say you do that at the beginning, you actually interpret the disc. You can buy disc assessments in a lot of different places. You could do it in 5 minutes and determine what their score is. And then you sit down with the recruit and you validate that instrument. I
Right.
guarantee you they will love that. When's the last time somebody sat down with them and basically unpacked their how they think? And
Right.
you can have the most intimate conversations with people, stuff that they haven't talked about like with anybody. And at that
Mhm.
point, you have an amazing relationship. Then you can talk about business. But to me, these are some of the necessary things that people skip and they go right to verbal vomiting on why they should come to your company versus it's a privilege to be here. I'm going to learn about you. You need to tell me why you're a good fit with us.
Right. Active listening is what I call that. Active listening. more important than talking.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I think that recruiters in general or leaders have really kind of, it's a lost art. You have to do that. It's all about the needs analysis, in my opinion.
For sure. We've got to dig in. Because we actually use the disc in multiple companies. My husband and I have 4 companies, and we do the disc on one of them. It's a construction fencing company that we own, and we do it before we hire. It is part of the hiring process, and it has definitely helped tremendously. And like I said, I did it with my brokerage before we hired as well. And it's an investment in them. You have to pay for those. I know with EXP now we get them for free, but as independent broker, I had to pay for every report. But boy, it was so worth it. So worth it. And I think there is a need to have all 4 in your brokerage so you feel your blind spots. If I had all high D's and I's, we would be missing so many details that the C's and the S's would do. And I found the S's to be great for working and leads that I funnel to them or handing off my overflow. That clients love them. They're way more nurturing than I am, and they're really good at follow up. They're just not hunters. And that you need hunters in this industry, but you also need the ones that are going to cross the T's, dot the I's, and have extremely good follow up. And I think that's where it's important to recognize your own blind spots and try to fill those gaps.
100%. Yeah. And I do agree with you, Courtney. We need all of them. And, when I recruit people, I think about several things in terms of, are they a good fit? First of all, do their core values match mine or similar in fashion, right? I want to make sure am I hiring a good person, good character person, right? Are they motivated? And you can tell motivation by asking them about their track record, asking them about their life. Many times, Courtney, I've had people get up on the whiteboard and I'll say, please draw me a picture of your life. I want, or whatever you want to do to show me your life. And they'll get up there, Courtney, and they'll start putting all these wonderful pictures and they're into it, right? And how better can I get to know somebody's track record of success than when they do that, you know? Um,
I would never have thought to do that. That's a good
yeah,
idea.
it's awesome. So, motivation, their track record, do they share the same kind of values that I have and what we're looking for in the company? These are all things that I'm thinking about, right? When I'm having a conversation. And by the way, the longer you kind of slow that process down, the better it gets. Because what happens is if you hire quickly, you will make mistakes based on feelings and emotion. But when you just extend it a little bit, you're gonna find red flags sometimes come up, and that's okay, right? It's okay to slow it down a little bit and think and really reflect upon that, and maybe have them come back for another second interview.
Right. Well, you touched on something else that I think is important. You said that they have to align with your core values. Okay. Core values, mission statement. You have to have a clear vision, right? And you have to know, and it can't just be you. You got to have the buy-in of your whole team around that. And sometimes, like we revisited our core values multiple times over the years because as we grew, as we opened different locations, they changed a little bit. And I think it's back to those where you're stuck working in the business and not on the business. And I think it's so critical to have strategic planning days where you just opt out. You're not in the office. You might be off site, not even at your house. Like we used to go have retreats with my leadership team and just dial those in every single quarter, like clockwork. And we did not miss it. And I think it was so important. I think that step gets missed a lot, or it's just like cookie cutter, you print it out, you put it on your walls. But do you know what it means? And are you truly living by it? Because you should be able to make decision making or do your decision making, like on hiring, based off of those core values. And it should help you manage your time, actually.
Well, I still agree. And it's not just your staff and your executive team knowing your values, it's your people, right? So how are you continually questioning and asking, probing them? Do you know the mission? Do you know the mission, right? And that's so important that people feel that they're a part of something, right? When I've been a part of the best cultures, people feel like that mission is bigger than themselves. And you have to, as a leader, you have to show the vision, right? Without vision, the people perish. So you continually have to go back to that vision and remind people, why are we doing this? It's so, so important to refresh that, when things change.
Right. Yep. No, I agree. Kind of think about your not just your vision, but also like how do you differentiate yourself in the market and how is your brokerage going to be different than your competitors? And that's hard to self-reflect like that
Yeah, absolutely.
and really understand how you're going to break apart and why people would want to work with you versus your competitor.
Yeah. And here's the thing, you're probably going to have the upper 20 to 30% of the people that are really plugging in, right? Those are the people, they're in it to win it, they're career oriented. And then you're going to have the rest of the people, right?
Yeah.
And so here's the thing, what I did is I always tried to find mechanisms where I could touch multiple people at once. So, Courtney and I want to give you guys some meat and potatoes in every episode. One of the things I would share today is, well, try to do group coaching with people.
Mhm.
Get a group of 10 together and go, hey, please, can you make it on this in this room or this Zoom call, whatever? And we're going to go over this, right? That way you're leveraging your time big time. I do a lot of that. And I also do a lot of videos, right? I am
Mm.
constantly, whatever I'm teaching, I'm putting on a video. I'm putting on a video and I'm creating a knowledge base. So then if somebody has a question, if you have to do the same thing like multiple times all the time, that's a red flag, right? So everything you're doing, you need to start recording it and putting it in a portal. We can give you some ideas on that. We have a whole episode geared toward that actually on leverage. We have so much good stuff to share with you guys, but think about that this week as you go forward. How do you leverage yourself and not do the same thing a gazillion times?
Right. Right. And you are so good with your videos, Jeff. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And if you're a content expert, like many of you are that are leaders of your brokerage, you're there because people respect you. They want to hear from you. So you have to do this. You have to do this content and get it out. Remember, this is a retention thing. This retains great people. If they're getting fed and you're leading them, they're not going to go anywhere.
No. No, good point. Good point. Yeah. Well, I was just, kind of along those same lines with like the structure. And so I know for me, I chose to run my company with EOS. Is that something that you did with yours or did you not? What kind of structure have you utilized?
Yeah. Are you talking about like the CRM or what are you talking about with that, Courtney?
So EOS is it's a system that you can use. There's a book called Traction. And it's essentially every single week. So I created a leadership team. I hired a fractional CFO who helped us implement this. And every single Monday we met and we used Trello, which is I still use to this day Trello for a lot of my projects. And you follow the exact format of EOS to the T every single week. And you helps you identify what your to-dos are, what your quarterly, we call them rocks. So your goals for the quarter, for the year. And of course, you start with your big long-term vision and then you work it backwards into the quarterly rocks. And I found it to be so incredibly helpful. So helpful. You never missed it and you did not and you have somebody that's called an integrator, which was not me. I'm the visionary. Michelle Roderick in my group was the integrator. She would run the meeting. I would come up with ideas. She would help figure out how the heck we're going to implement them.
So is that like a management in a box kind of software, like teaching you how to run the brokerage? Is that what EOS is?
It's just a structure for your businesses on how to run more lean, actually. I think I could be wrong, but I think it started with in manufacturing with like getting lean with your systems, right? Gino Wickman wrote the book. Highly recommend it to anyone that's an entrepreneur that needs to get more structure around their business.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you got your vision, and then you
Yeah.
have these weekly meetings that are using the EOS system, and then it sounds like you're using the Trello system too. Is that more of the mechanism, like the how tos on getting things done?
Trello is there's other things kind of like it, like Monday, I think is another one that's similar. And it's just it's a website that you plug everything on. It has little cards. So it almost looks like post-it notes on there. And you can see who owns what rock because there's somebody accountable, one person accountable for each action item. And so it just gives you that higher level of accountability. And it's just a way that I like to be able to see what we're doing each week. And you can, you know, plug in and someone else can see what you've put in there. Just made it a little more efficient than like doing it on paper.
I love it. That sounds awesome. So we covered some good stuff today in terms of mission, vision, using these tools. And by the way, if you have a question on how to use those tools, please get a hold of Courtney. I mean, that's what it's all about. We're here to help you. Um, the other thing too is as you're growing a brokerage from like 0 agents, where you're the only person, so there's one of you and 0 agents, I think you need to start understanding what is your secret sauce? What are you the best at? Are you better on the compliance side, on the brokering side, or are you better on the agent attraction side? Because you need both. And so when you figure that out, then I need to go get somebody else to help me. When I grew a company in Chandler, Arizona, from 0 to 250, we were like number one in the whole state of Arizona for production per agent. I did that because I focused on the agent attraction and my business partner focused on the brokerage, the brokering and the compliance. So when you get clear on that, you grow a lot faster.
Well, I agree with you, but I will say one little caveat, and this is just me. Partnerships are hard.
Oh yeah.
And so when you're talking about having a partner, I mean, you have to be thoughtful on that. Or in my case, I've created a leadership team and managers is kind of the way I did it. Cause it's true. You do need to have those people filling those different voids. But, for those of us out there that have partners, that can be tough sometimes.
Yeah, you're right. But you're absolutely right. It's like if you can create a leadership team, and let's think about this. A broker, there's I would say high level brokers that are very, very skilled, and then you have transactional brokers. You can go get transactional brokers for not a whole lot of money every month that are reviewing files, right? There's
Mhm.
file review and then there's escalation of issues. So to your point, I agree with you, right? If you can create a team and retain the ownership, yourself and lead, I think that's probably the best way to go. I agree.
Yeah. Although it can be lonely sometimes when you're the broker and you have no one that you can actually like be transparent with or talk to, or, sometimes times are tough or you're making really stressful decisions that impact people. If you don't have a partner or a leadership team, you got to have a mentor or somebody that's your person that you can kind of talk to and, help hold your hand now and again.
And that is so true. I mean, this is partly why we put this together, right? I mean, if you have a question, put it in the chat, or if you just want to talk to one of us, call us because you got to have somebody outside of your brokerage, right? You have to. It's so important. You need somebody that you can talk to that you're safe with, and that you can trade. Your difficult moments with them and not feel like they're going to take advantage of you. It's all about masterminding and collaboration.
Well, along those same lines, if you want to be on our podcast, if you aren't a broker, we want to hear from you. We want you on as our guests because we all can learn from one another. So if that's something you're interested in, please reach out to us because we would love to have you on.
Yeah, and as we close this one out, we like to do our broker recharge moment, right, Courtney?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so here's my challenge for you today. Okay, I want you to think about yourself because in some ways, well, actually, you need to always take care of yourself first, your body, your mind, your physical state, your mental state, your spiritual state, right? So I've been doing Miracle Morning for 5 years. Great book written by Hal Elrod. And I go through these rhythms every single morning because if you win the morning, typically you'll win the day,
Mm.
right? So I'll do 5 minutes of silence and meditation, prayer. I'll do 5 minutes of affirmations, 5 minutes of visualization, 60 minutes of exercise, 20 minutes of reading, and 5 minutes of scribing. So I go through this rhythm, right? It gets me locked and loaded for the day. But I just want you to, I'm going to challenge you with this. I want you to write one note a day for the next week to somebody in your brokerage. And if you don't have any agents, then I want you to think about somebody outside of your brokerage that you're thankful for. And I want you to write them a note of gratitude.
Mm.
I want you to write it on with blue ink on a slant, because psychologists say that that's much better for reception from the receiver. So blue ink on a slant, and I want you to focus on something you love about them, and I want you to write about it, a trait that you love, and let them know how much you appreciate that, and say, let's chat soon, and just put your phone number in there and your name. Don't talk about real estate. Don't talk about your company. Just tell them how much you appreciate that trait in them and what an impact it's had in your life. Do that and see what happens in your life this week.
Perfect. Great advice to end this episode on. Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for episode 2. Until next week. It's going to be awesome. So you can follow, yeah, you can follow me at All Things Twiss, and you can follow Jeff at the Jeff Sutherlin Show on YouTube, where we'll be dropping these episodes. And we hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
See you there, everybody.